This is a review on the Microtech Tachyon. I got this knife from a Blade Forums member, Eric, who was kind enough to loan me his knife for a review. I wanted to thank him for that. The Tachyon was built or produced by Microtech around 2001, 2002, and I think it was discontinued around 2006. I'm not really sure. I'm not an expert on knife history, so if I'm wrong on anything when doing this review, just forgive me and make a comment and correct me if I get something wrong. His particular model is a September of 2002, so it's kind of an earlier model. It says Microtech always prints their birth dates on their blade. I'm not really sure how many were made. The Microtech Tachyon is pretty sought after, and it is considered pretty rare. There were different models of this knife built. Some had this one's a black boron coated blade, but they also had a stonewash finish. They also had a partially serrated blade, and I think the handles, they have like black handles, and I think they might have like more silver type handles. I've just seen different finishes. I'm not exactly sure what they were though. But this particular finish I kind of like the best. I think it looks very classy, but kind of tactical at the same time. As far as the quality of the Tachyon, that's really what sets this knife apart from other balisongs. Pretty much from the tip all the way down to the pivots, through the handles, all the way down to the latch. It's built pretty much to perfection. I mean, you could get up really close to this knife, and you can just tell that the way that it was put together, the way that it was machined, it's pretty much flawless. And that's saying a lot for a balisong, because balisongs, from my experience, always have something that's lacking. You know, whether it's one thing or the other, I just kind of feel like no matter what, in every single balisong that I have, I can find some small flaw. It might be a major flaw, it might be a small flaw, but just for instance, and I don't mean to pick on my favorite balisong here, but the basilisk, the one flaw that I found was that the latch is a little bit loose. This is after me flipping it extensively, but it was loose to begin with even when I bought it. And even though this basilisk uses a bushing system like the Tachyon, the play is kind of a lot for a bushing system. Not to the point where it affects the flipping, but there is play. And again, you know, the latch has a little bit of room to move there. The Benchmade 42, which everyone's familiar with, it's always had a reputation for having quote unquote slop in the handles. The pivot area here, a lot of people actually disassemble this, put their own washers in just to get the tolerances a little bit tighter. Now some people like the play, you know, and again, it doesn't affect the performance of the knife, but point being that the build quality, you know, it's a small little flaw that that Benchmade didn't overcome when they were building this knife. On the contrary, I really couldn't find anything on the Microtech. Firstly, let's look at the play. It's pretty much zero, which is amazing for a balisong. And this is after I flipped it. This is after I did all my flipping footage, and I flipped this knife extensively. And there's just pretty much no movement. I didn't adjust the pivots at all. Latch, as you can see, is very tight. Close is very tight. And that's in the open position. In the closed position, it's just very, very tightly fit. You can just see the way that the pivots were done, the way that the tang pins were fitted, very tight. The tolerances on this knife were just superb. And that's really what sets the Tachyon apart from other balisongs. I think that's, you know, that's what sets Microtech apart from other knives, is that they have a very high standard of quality. So they definitely didn't fall short on the Tachyon. As far as the flippability, it's a good flipper, but I wouldn't call it a great flipper. I actually thought that it would, I guess it met my expectations on how it flipped. I didn't think it would be as good as the 42 or the Basilisk. It has titanium handles with metal spacers, so the balance is good, the balance is there. But one thing that I find always affects flipping is the handle length. I think the handle length is like 4.9 inches on the Tachyon. Now if you compare that to the Basilisk, as you can see, the Basilisk has about, you know, maybe a almost, let's just do that. Not quite a half inch, but maybe a third of an inch more real estate. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you are flipping, if you have a shorter blade, shorter handled balisong, what it forces a flipper to do, in my experience anyway, is it forces a flipper to have to manipulate a little bit closer to the pivots. You can't move too far towards the ends because then you just kind of lose control of the knife. So you have a little bit less flexibility. And if you do manage to move too far away from the pivots, you'll lose control, the knife would fly out, or it'll just kind of disrupt your routine. Compared to the 42, again, as you can see, the 42 has got a nice amount of reach on the over the Tachyon. In addition to that, the Tachyon has some pretty thin handles. Here's all three of them. It's not the best shot here, but the Basilisk has a nice fat. You get a nice fat purchase on the handles. The 42 also, you get a lot of real estate. It's pretty thick. And the Tachyon, I wouldn't say it's too thin, but it is thinner, you know. So for flipping, you just have to change up your style. I have seen this knife get flipped very well, but I just wouldn't consider it a competition grade flipper. You don't see it used a whole lot in contests and challenges, FATOC, but I have seen some members in blade forums and in the flipping arena flip this knife extremely well. And some people, you know, might even prefer it over the Basilisk or the 42, but in my opinion, it's good, but it's not great. The value, the price, the value of the knife, when it first came out, this knife was $200, which is an absolute steal. I can't believe it was that much. Now, I just saw one, this exact same model, same year, same build, everything, go on a knife forum, I think it was Jersey Devil forum, for $600. And I thought that was kind of crazy, but I've been looking around, and all of these knives are going for around, all the Tachyons are going around 500, 600, maybe 400 if they're not in the best condition. Even a year ago, these were like 300 or 350. So they're definitely going up in value. They are very rare. Is it worth it? As a collector, I suppose it is, because there's people willing to pay that price. As a flipper, I probably wouldn't pay 600 for it. I think there's a lot of other options out there. Personally, I think that even though the 42 has also gone up in value, I think $300 for, or $280 for a 42, if you're a flipper, is a better deal, because I think this is better suited for flipping. The Basilisk, it is discontinued, but I do see them go used for around $350, $400. Still think this is the superior flipper. So as a flipper, no, I wouldn't pay that much. Also, the Cold Steel Archangel is there's still used ones out there, and they're still around the 300, 350 mark, and I would still prefer that over the Tachyon. But the Tachyon is kind of in a league of its own. Again, the quality sets it apart, and just overall, you know, it would make an outstanding piece to anyone's collection. You know, I think it's a superbly built knife. It is a good flipper, beautiful looking blade. So that's the Tachyon. Hope you enjoyed the review, and if you have any questions or comments, let me know. Thanks for watching.